part will be, I will be explaining what it is, and then we'll go into a more practical part. So,
Okay, Ms. Jennifer Ramsay, if you would introduce yourself and begin the session.
okay. Well, hi everyone. My name's Jennifer Ramsay, and as well as a storyteller and an art therapist, I've been working with Moonology and a type of astrology as well, evolutionary astrology, for quite a number of years. And today I am honoured to be here to talk about my experience with Moonology, using the moon as a guide. And it started off, I think, about 3 years ago when I bought a moon diary and started noting down how I felt when the moon changed, because the moon actually changes every 2.5 days. I've got all this on a PowerPoint presentation, so if anyone's interested, I'll put my email in and you can, and I'll send it. You send me a message and I'll send the presentation to you. Okay, so everything's in it. And so I discovered that at certain times of the month, like when the moon was in Pisces, perhaps I could be a little bit tearful. And that could be because something was really beautiful, so beautiful, it moved me to tears. Or it could be because I was sad about something. And then 2.5 days later, the moon would move into Aries, and there was no time at all for tears. It was just action. So I was really aware of these when the moon was in something like Virgo, as it is at the moment. Perhaps I just really felt like tidying up and ordering things. So that's, I really sort of started observing it, and also in my clients as well, especially round about the full moon, because perhaps I'd have a client who would come and they'd be just crying the whole session. And then I'd think it's the full moon, and it would just sort of all click into place. So I started following it as a guide for myself and also with my clients. Now, what I do, there's 2 very key moments every month. The new moon is when we're just starting out a new project, a new moon cycle, and that is the perfect time just to plant little seeds. It's like go inside and see, what would I actually quite like to grow in my life in the next month or in the next cycle? And so that's what I do on the new moon. Now, the new moon in Virgo was 6 months ago on the 17th of September. And I was looking at my diary, and what I wrote down there was I really wanted to share story as healing medicine, story medicine. And now, 6 months later, in the full moon in Virgo, here I am sharing it with you. So for me, I didn't mention the Chennai festival, but for me, it's come true, because the seed, which you should be watering throughout the month with, if you want to grow, imagine you want more, passion or more friendship in your life. Well, you don't just plant it and leave it, because it is like a little plant. It needs water. Okay, so you pay attention to it, and perhaps at the end of the month, you can see that it grows, or perhaps it's 6 months later, but there is an intention. It's a very magical moment, and in my experience, it does grow. Now, today's the full moon. So what do we do in the full moon? Well, it's the exact opposite. In the full moon, it's just like, I don't know how you're actually feeling today, because they say that emotions you could have a lot of emotions. Perhaps you didn't sleep very well last night. That's another thing that happens. I actually find in the full moon in Virgo, which is earth energy, it doesn't affect me as much as it would perhaps a full moon, which is in a water energy like Scorpio or water. So I actually feel good. I feel quite balanced today. Okay. And the important thing is to know how you feel. because it doesn't matter what the books say, it's how you feel. Now, the full moon for me is a moment to celebrate and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful moon that comes out every month. But also, as you know, where there's more light, there's more shadow. So it's a really good time to take that light of the moon and just focus on your shadow aspect. And if there's something you see that perhaps you don't like so much, it's a really good time to just think about or actually release it. Energy that's perhaps been inside, that's taken up space, resentment or things like this. Perhaps it's just the time to let it go with the waning moon. And also it really does depend where the moon is. It's in Virgo. So I think it's perhaps a good time to tell you about Virgo, because every moon has its gifts for us. And one more thing, when the moon's full, it's at the opposite side of the sun. It's like a tug of war's happening, because the sun at the moment is in Pisces portal. And Pisces is all very watery, deep waters, dreamy, fluid, no limits. And then you have Virgo on the other side where the moon is. And Virgo is limits, order, earth. So they really are very, very different. And although it's a tug of war, it's also something, they're complementary. Because if you have two Pisces together, then they never really get anywhere. And if you have two Virgos together, then, you know, if they're in the shadow aspect, oh, that could be difficult. So are you ready to hear about Virgo? Is anyone here Virgo? Have they got their sun in Virgo? Or if you know where your moon is, or you know where your rising is there anyone here? Or perhaps think about maybe your partner or a close friend. Okay, so we have some Virgos. Okay,
Yes.
let's see what they say at the end of the chat, okay? Okay, I'm going to tell you all about Virgo, the good things and the bad things. I love all the sign of the zodiacs. And all the signs have their light aspect and their dark aspect, the most shadow aspect. So let's have a look at Virgo. There's a lot of Virgos here, actually. I actually think this combination is interesting for storytellers, because with the sun in Pisces, it really is good to be in contact with this dreamlike world, the symbolic part, diving deep into these waters, no? And on the other side, with Virgo there, that's how we can actually structure our lives. That's how we can actually go and tell stories and work out Zoom and send invoices. So it is good to have both parts. Okay, so there's definitely people here who identify with Virgo. Okay, some notes about Virgo, which, as I say, I've got it all here for you if you need it. The thing I like most of all is the Virgo energy is all about healing, but healing with earth energy, like medicine man, medicine woman, like sort of witchy type energy. Because they use the earth energy, it's things like stones, gemstones, crystals, and also like herbs. What other, just plants. They use the earth energy to heal. So I just think that's the most beautiful thing. It's a very organic sign. And it's a very organic sign in a very inorganic moment, because we passed into the era of Aquarius, and Aquarius isn't really into organic at all. So that's another tug of war going on. And also it's like Virgo likes giving service to the world. Okay, not as in I'll go and make your dinner and serve up in a plate. It's like, well, perhaps your sacred service is telling stories, Okay, it's that kind of service to help the world be a better place. Other things. Also, the physical body is very important for Virgo. Normally a Virgo, like the typical person that could be a Virgo, for me, the stereotype is perhaps a yoga teacher. So they have their daily routine, they really look after their body and really look at what they eat. And so the physical body, the earth in the body is also very important. The symbol is the Virgin. So it's connected with like purity and cleanliness. Okay. And what other things? It is earth. Now, this is very important. It's an earth sign, so it's earthy, it is grounded, but it's also very mental. So we're actually going to do a little bit of body work today, because what we don't want is just to be up here all the time. We really want to get into this Virgo body energy. And because the planet's Mercury. And as you know, those of you in the storytelling world, Hermes is the symbol for Mercury. It brings down messages from the gods to the planet Earth. Okay, so that's why it could be very mental. And let's see, anything else? Okay, let's get into things that could be a bit more light or darkness. Virgo likes order. Okay, now that's perfect. Perhaps they have really organized wardrobes, but it can actually get a bit too much. So those of you who have a partner in Virgo, I don't know what this situation's like for you, but perhaps they just want everything in order all the time, and they can't, they just don't want things, they don't function when things are disordered. They can also be very critical. Very critical. It's one of the worst, in terms of all the signs, this is the most difficult actually, when it's in the shadow aspect, because it's so critical. I mean, people actually don't want to be with you anymore because they criticize everything. And also they can be very perfectionist. Imagine you have a completely white wall, perfect. They could see a little spot on it. That's Virgo for you. Now that can also be good because they would make great accountants. They can look at all the figures and say, oh, there's a mistake here. So these things can be in light and in shadow. And I think that's what I want to tell you about Virgo. Now, there'll be people here who know about astrology, and there'll be people here who don't know anything about astrology. That's fine as well. You don't need to know about astrology to do Moonology. But if you do know a little bit about astrology, it would be interesting to look at your birth chart and see where you have Virgo. Because we have 12 houses in our birth chart. And wherever you have Virgo, it will be affecting that area of your life. If it's in the first house, perhaps it's something to do with your appearance. If it's in the third house, communication, it'll be something to do with your communication. And again, I have all this information on the PDF, okay? So, are there any questions before we start the more sort of like practical part? So I don't want to overload you with information, but I do want you to understand what's happening. I'll just wait a second just to see. Is sun sign and moon sign different? Yeah, very different. For example, actually you'd have to do your birth chart to know where you have your moon sign and things. The sun sign is what you normally, like I was born in April, so I'm Aries. Okay, so normally when someone says I'm Capricorn or whatever, that's your sun sign. And then the moon is something very different, okay? It really is, but that's a whole different workshop. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions. Okay, some people say they don't function the way Virgos are described. A lot of this depends because we're not just our sun sign. We are everything in our chart. When I read someone's chart, you could have your sun sign there, but nothing else is there. So it's the whole thing. It's really holistic. I'm very disorganized. Okay. Okay, but again, that could be, I'd need to see your whole chart. Okay. These are sort of like guidelines, just so you know what the Virgo energy is. Okay. And also they say when you get to a certain age, it's actually your rising sun, your rising sign, which takes over. And it's a lot of information, so I don't want to download you. Well, listen, I think there's a struggle between Aquarius and Virgo just because we have gone into the Aquarian age, which is all futuristic. It's about technology and things. But I really feel as if I've made peace with it, because here we are doing things connected with storytelling through technology. And it's all about Aquarius normally wants to get rid of the old, and Virgo wants to keep the old. It's very sort of like traditional, very organic. So the balance really is bringing the good things that have worked from the old into the new age. That would be the balance. The ascendant, again, just see that you'd have to have your birth chart. On the PDF, I've put in a few places where you can actually go in and get a free birth chart. And the ascendant is the first house in your birth chart, okay? Anyway, I think it's time to do the practical. And at the end, that would, there'd be more time for stories, okay? There'd be more time for questions, sorry. Now, remember, really important to remember, it's an earth sign, but it's also a little bit up in the air. So I'm going to invite you to put some music on, and I'll invite you to move or dance or stretch, just whatever you need to get into your body, okay? It could even be a little massage, that's fine as well. And it's just a little tiny song. It lasts 3 minutes and it's called the Moon Song.
And if I could interrupt, we will stop recording now. So please dance with the knowledge that you are not being recorded.
Exactly. So just 3 minutes, just whatever you need to get into your sign. The story will be connected with something connected with the earth. If it was water, it'd be a story with water or air or whatever. So what you would need is just to have some paper and a pen nearby. Okay, we'll do a short story. We'll be going into a visualization exercise, and then you'll have a few moments to write or reflect or whatever, okay? So here we go. Just make sure your feet are on the floor or feel the chair on your back. Just feel connected to something solid. And let's go to the world of stories. A long, long time ago, when the world was very young, they say that people were actually trees. We had no legs. What we had was a tree trunk. And our arms were branches, and there was little leaves. And instead of hair, lots of leaves. And underground, our roots went really, really deep. They were connected with all the community of trees around us. And in the middle was the great grandmother tree. Everybody loved the great grandmother tree. She was so wise and so generous. And in this community of trees, everyone felt connected. And if a tree was ill or needed something, throughout all the root system, they would send the energy and the minerals that that tree needed to feel better. It was a real community. And that's the way it was for a long, long, long time. Everything was in harmony. They had everything they needed from Mother Earth. But one day, something terrible started to happen. All these sort of like balls of fire would come out of the earth and cause fires, and many of the trees were dying. No one understood what was happening. And then they started to hear the word war. No one knew what war was, but it kept going on and on and on, and lots of trees were dying. And the great grandmother tree said at one point, children, grandchildren, you have to leave. You have to pull up your roots and go. But no one wanted to go. Where would they go? That was home. Everyone was so happy they're so part of the community. But the great grandmother tree said, no, you have to go. There will be a time when we will get back together as a community, but please go. And all the trees started to pull up their roots, and very slowly, and with their heavy heart, they all left. And that poor great grandmother tree was all alone. So sad. It hurt so much. But what hurt even more, something that she could never, ever, ever could have imagined, as that her children and the grandchildren forgot where they came from. They forgot their origins, that we were all connected underground. But she was patient. She waited and she waited. She has been waiting for a long, long, long time. But it seems that now some people are beginning to remember where they came from. And especially on the nights of the full moon, the great grandmother calls out to her children, I'm here, I'm here. It's time to come back. She speaks very slowly, as trees do, and very softly. But if you listen carefully, on the night of the full moon, you will hear her call out to you. She's waiting for you. And now, perhaps would be a good moment for you to close your eyes. Just go inside and feel this story move through your body. And I'm going to ask you some questions. And just reflect on these questions. Afterwards, there'll be time for you to write. How much time do you spend in nature? And when you're in nature, are you fully present? Do you see what's happening around you? Do you connect with the rhythms of the earth? Here in Spain, there's little shoots beginning to grow, and the trees have their buds. What about you? Is something growing within you? Are there little buds waiting to blossom into flowers? And what about the moon cycles? Do you know what cycle the moon's in every month? What keeps you from being fully present with Mother Earth? And now let's think about our physical body, the earth in our body. Are you taking care of yourself? What type of food do you put in your body? Is it natural, organic? And what about exercise? Are you getting enough exercise? And if not, what's stopping you? Perhaps just take a quick scan of your body, starting from your feet going up. Just thinking, is any part of my body calling out for some attention? Just go up through your legs, your knees, and all the different organs of your body. I'll give you just a minute or two. Your womb, your heart. When was the last time you said thank you to your heart? And what about your lungs? Especially important in the moment we're living in history. Do you say thank you to your lungs for the air that you breathe every day? Just a quick scan of other parts of your body. Is anything needing attention? And let's think about the physical space around us. Do you have a lot of clutter in your house or in your wardrobe? Are there any things that you don't need anymore that you could pass on and give them a second life? And just open up space for the new. What about your desktop, the area around you? Is it organized? Is it cluttered? Can you think of something that you physically could pass on just to leave more space in your life? Or perhaps you're too organized, too much of a perfectionist. And in that case, maybe what you could leave is being rigid, being too perfectionist. And what about the clutter in your mind? What's going on in your mind Are you worried about anything? Is worry, fear taking up a lot of space inside? Because if it is, then perhaps there's not space for other more positive things. So perhaps if you could, maybe you could just get rid of a little bit of worry in the next couple of weeks. And is there anyone you need to forgive? Is there anything that's happened, perhaps resentment inside? Not forget, but just perhaps let go of that inside you, which is taking up that space for something that could be more loving and helpful in the world. And just finally, just have a little think, is there anything else toxic physically or mentally that you would like to release in the next 2 weeks with the waning moon? And now perhaps it's time to take a few deep breaths and come all the way back from the world of stories, imagination. Back to the here and now. And this would be a good time just to write whatever you need to write or draw, just whatever. I have all these questions on the presentation, okay? Perfectionism. Well, perhaps you grew up in a family that was totally chaotic, and you were the one that had to put like the structure and the organization in. Well, perhaps that was really good at one point, but maybe now it's actually keeping you away from the people you love. So it would actually be sort of just giving thanks to it before you let it go. And bit by bit, okay? Every month we have this opportunity to let go. So I would like you just to choose, it could just be one thing or perhaps a couple of things, but not too much at the one go, okay? Especially because afterwards we have David's ceremony and you have to be you have to be ready. And what I'd like to do actually, I have my frame drum, which I always use on the full moon. And I'm just going to touch it lightly because sometimes I touch it and the sound goes. I don't want that to happen. I'll just touch it a few times. And what I'd like you to do is just, when I stop, okay, I'll do it just a few times and I'll stop. And I want you just to sort of like throw anything that you really think should be taken away. And I'm going to catch it in my moon drum. And I have prepared, I have some, well, I have all sorts of herbs here because remember, Virgo is a herb energy. This is actually from the cypress tree just outside my house. And I'm just going to burn it because cypress is very much connected with releasing and things you want, you know, like death. So, and I'll just do that with all the things I catch in my drum, okay? So I'll just do it. So don't throw it now, just wait a few seconds. Any questions? Okay, so I'll just do a few rounds. There'll be some silence, I'll catch it. And then with the herbal medicine, I will be doing some cleansing. So it's one. So if there's anything you'd like to throw into the moon drum, just anything you need. Just wash it here. Anything else? Last second. Let's just check. I'm just going to check that everything's cleaned. One moment, just talk to the drum. Perfect. Whatever it is that arrived is already cleaned. It must have just been waiting to be released. Just for this magic moon to be released. Well, so what to do now? You have until the new moon to release. So every day, if you wanted, if there's something else that comes to mind, just feel free to release it back into the earth where it came from. And the new moon will be in Pisces, which is water. So it will dissolve into the water and float away. Okay, I'm going to put my address in. Are there any questions? Oh, we still have quite a lot of minutes, Eric. Yeah, so there are time for questions. I'm going to put my email in.
Yes, we still have 10 more minutes.
Okay, I went a bit fast because I thought I wouldn't have time, and in the end we did. Okay, so this is my email, and I'll send it. Okay, that's it sent. Yeah, you can also bury the things, okay? You can send it to me and I'll clean it, and also you can bury it. Everything's perfect. And remember, every moon is completely different. Today we went down into the earth because it's Virgo. The next full moon will be in Libra, which is air. It's about beauty, it's about harmony. It will be something absolutely completely different.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
you played the drum very beautifully, and you spoke very beautifully a few moments ago. And I'm feeling that was a little bit of a ceremony. But can you tell us what is a ceremony?
Okay. Well, I actually call this activity moon stories. It's quite difficult to define because I also do ceremonies for the Celtic wheel, there are 8 festivals in the Celtic wheel. And there we go really, really, really into the 4 elements. And it's just a deeper experience. We'd need 2 hours to do it.
But what happens in a ceremony? What makes a ceremony a ceremony?
What makes a ceremony a ceremony? Okay, it's a good question. For me, there's just the idea of it's to connect with what's happening. Okay, so at the moment we're connecting with where the moon is. We connect it with what's happening in us. We see if we are aligned or what needs to be aligned, and how the energy of that moment can help. And there's always some kind of little activity. I actually quite like doing like a creative activity, so that it's not just like on paper, it's actually something we make with our hands if there's time. But it's just the idea of you've connected with something. It's also like personal development, something that you know that would be good for your personal development. And then you sort of like close the space, and then, you know, very soon after is the next ceremony. So in the wheel of the year, it's 8 a year. We're coming up to the equinox, where the focus is on balance. But at the moment, there's, you know, things are growing. Then we get to the balance, and then we're in total abundance. And you'd have a look in the abundance to see what's abundant in you. So it's just basically connecting with nature. And it really, really has helped me. It really has. It's just 8 times a year in the wheel of the year, and every month to connect with the moon. And no matter what happens in the month, it doesn't really matter, because you can just start all over again. It's like, I made mistakes, this didn't work. Oh, well, you go into the void, into the darkness, and the cycle starts all over again. And it happens every month. The moon is the most fantastic guide. She's there, she's generous. She doesn't ask for anything in return, just for you to look at her and realize that she's there. I hope I answered your question, Eric. It's quite a big
Yes, yes.
question
And Valentina has asked in the chat, how do you work with stories and ceremonies differently when you're physically present with a person as opposed to online?
Well, it's not really that different, because imagine there's a circle of people. I would tell my stories. Perhaps we would go into a visualization exercise. But what would be different afterwards is there would be time to share. And normally I have some kind of like oracle cards or tarot cards, and we take out one and see which would be good to help us, accompany us during the next stage. Okay, that's what I would do, but that would be like a 2-hour ceremony. Someone's asking about the waning moon. Listen, actually, I would, if someone's really interested in Moonology, there is a book, a really basic book, which I would suggest you buy, called Moonology. And it goes through the 8 phases of the moon. Okay, as I say, it's too much for 1 hour. And I actually have the book, and I have the Moonology diary. Okay, so every new moon and every full moon, I write down in the diary what's happening. And also this gives you some ideas of what to look for, because if you don't know much about astrology, it would be quite difficult at the beginning. And again, that's on the PDF. A Wheel of the Year calendar. Yeah, I think if you put it in internet, Wheel of the Year calendar, it'll come up. I've actually got one on my website. I think I'll have one on my website, and there's a moon calendar as well on my website. That'll be on the PDF. I do open up the circle before ceremony. I don't in the moon stories. This started off just actually being moon stories, visualization, and I only started it a few months ago in Online Events UK, and it's becoming really big. I mean, sometimes I have like 80 people in it. So, but normally in the Wheel of the Year ceremony, I would open the space with my herbs. There would be the elements, and at the end, I would say thank you to the elements, and yeah, it'd be.
Jennifer, why don't you also type in your website address?
Oh, that's a good idea.
And Maya, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. Oh, that was so beautiful. Of course, it's morning here and it's snowing, and it's called I wrote this in chat, it's called the full snow moon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's amazing because it's snowing just like it's the name of this moon, at least in USA, is full snow moon. But when you did the whole last piece of your guided questions, I wrote a lot of resentment down, which is very painful and very helpful. And it was very powerful writing. And I have a question. The writing is very good, and darkness is part of art. So you're saying to bury or to burn it. Part of me wants to hold on to the writing because it's very good. And part of me wants to just burn it all up because I don't want to hold on to any piece of it. I'd like your thoughts. And I also just one last quick comment. I had this wonderful realization. It's very simple, but the word resentment or resent is made of RE and scent. Resent is RE plus scent. So there's SENT. So there's something about sending away the resentment and resetting that gave me some extra energy and just in the word coming to me in a new way. Thank you. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, lovely. I would actually bury the word resentment. Okay, because that's what you're really wanting to let go of. But I wouldn't get rid of those beautiful words. And I would actually suggest to anyone with what came out, it would be beautiful, like if a story or a poem or something came out of those words, because it's about letting go so that something else can grow. So that would be absolutely lovely if you could do that. But I would maybe bury the word just resentment, and talking about using the medicine of the earth. Holly, the back flower remedy, is very good for things like that. Okay, holly and willow. You'd have to look up internet to see which one is more connected with yours. Okay, but just that would help it just go. And it is using the plants of the earth. But please, if anyone feels like a poem or anything, a story, that would just be fantastic. And I would love to read it if you felt like sending it to me. That would be the best thing ever.
Okay, the session is almost over. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Do you want to say any final words?
And not really, but please do write to me and I'll send you on the PDF. I could actually try and put it in, but I've never actually done that before, so I don't know. I will try actually and put it in, okay? If that's
Okay, but if that doesn't work, people can just send you an email.
exactly. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely full moon, and enjoy releasing.